Good evening and welcome to the World Now at 4. I am Ainan Lubem. Welcome. First, the headlines. On the headlines, INEC insists on use of technology for elections. Sierra Leone passes bill to make women a third of MPs. Denmark centre-left blocks comes out on top. While on sports, Swiatek starts with win against Kazakhstan. And now the news in detail. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has again assured citizens that he would leave Nigeria a safer country by the time he concludes his tenure of office in 2023. The president gave the reassurance on Wednesday during the emblem appeal launch for the 2023 Armed Forces and Remembrance Day held at the council chambers of the presidential villa in Abuja, the nation's capital. The president also announced a donation of 10 million naira towards the appeal fund and the welfare of the Nigerian Legion. He called on all Nigerian corporate organizations to also support the country's veterans and the families of the fallen heroes whose past sacrifices have kept the country together. The president commended the nation's armed forces for their sacrifices towards making the country a safer place for all citizens and visitors, assuring of the administration's continued support and needed funding for to continue their efforts. Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mahmood Yakubu, has said the Commission's allegiance and loyalty are to the nation and her citizens who want free, fair, credible and verifiable elections supported by technology, which guarantees transparent accreditation and upload of polling units results for citizens to view in real time on election day. This was as the chairman reiterated in a statement published on Wednesday titled "A Message from the INEC Chairman 100 Days to the 2023 General Election," that there is no going back in the Commission's readiness to deploy the bimodal voter accreditation system and the INEC result viewing portal in the 2023 general election. Yakubu said INEC had made a steady progress in electoral reform and election administration, adding that Nigeria's confidence in the electoral process was increasing. He therefore called on all Nigerians to fully participate in all electoral activities, including the ongoing display of the Register of Voters for Claims and Objections, as well as collection of permanent voter cards, that is the PVCs. Yakubu also appealed to political parties and other stakeholders to eschew violence and rancor and conduct their campaigns peacefully, while pledging that INEC would play its part diligently and in the elections. The United States of America, that is USA, has allocated $50 million to support Nigeria's 2023 general elections. The fund, it said, would cover training of journalists, civil society organizations, and technical assistance, among others, to ensure transparent elections. U.S. Consul General Will Stevens disclosed this in Ibadan, Oyo State, during an open session on elections, reporting at a workshop for journalists organized by the West Africa Broadcast and Media Academy. He charged Nigerians to participate in the elections processes by ensuring that they voted for candidates of their choice, urging the media to ensure thorough and objective reporting of the elections.
And we're supporting you to host these workshops for over 100 journalists and reporters as part of our efforts to support Nigeria's elections. Over the last 3 years and into the next year or two, the U.S. government has allocated over $50 million for technical assistance and support and training to INEC and others and civil society organizations.
Media experts Lai Osho of the Lagos State University and Christian Olasi of the School of Communication, Texas Southern University, said democracy would not survive without the media. Some journalists at the event also pledged to ensure accurate reportage during the general elections. Nigerian military authorities have confirmed the elimination of wanted terrorist kingpins Halilu Buzu, Yelu Kano, Alhaji Ghana, and others who have been confirmed killed in an airstrike by the air component of Operation Hadarin Daji last month. It was gathered that the strike led to the decimation of several terrorists and the destruction of their logistics base at Maradun local government area of Zamfara state. Sources said the airstrikes came about after credible intelligence revealed that a prominent terrorist, Halilu Buzu of Sububu in Maradun local government area of Zamfara state, had scheduled an early morning meeting with commanders and some of his foot soldiers in the area. Consequently, Nigeria Air Force aircraft scrambled to strike the location of the meeting and the logistics base. When we return, news from other parts of Africa. Stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. The parliament in Sierra Leone has approved legislation that will ensure that 1 in 3 of its members and a third of all local councillors are women. The bill will now go to President Julius Bell to be signed into law. Despite it being a key promise in his 2018 election campaign, it took 3 years for Cabinet to approve the draft. An earlier version was withdrawn over technicality. Currently, only 19 of Sierra Leone's 146 members of parliament are women. And now to Kenya, where former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta has arrived in the key Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo in the city of Goma on Tuesday. His visit comes as the country's soldiers are engaged in talks in renewed clashes with M23 rebels to the north of the city. Security officials and local residents say the militias are battling troops in just 20 kilometers out of town. Speaking in Kinshasa, where he held talks with senior government and United Nations figures, Kenyatta called on all parties in the conflict to lay down their arms and nurture a sense of patriotism. We now move to other parts of Africa after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now to news from other parts of the world. Poland put its military on heightened readiness after Russian missiles reportedly landed inside the NATO members' borders in a major escalation of the war in Ukraine. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of firing the missiles into Poland, but there was no immediate confirmation from either Warsaw or Washington, and Moscow dismissed the reported strikes as a provocation intended to escalate tensions. Spokesman Piotr Mulla told reporters after an emergency National Security Council meeting in Warsaw that there has been a decision to raise the state of readiness of some combat units and other uniformed services. Following his meeting with leaders of the G7 and NATO on Ukraine, President Joe Biden said it is unlikely the missile that hit Poland was fired from Russia, but that the group would support the investigation into what happened.
As you saw, I just met with the leaders of NATO and the G7 and talked about the latest events in Europe. And I briefed them on my discussions with President Duda of Poland, as well as NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg.
I am.
And we agreed to support Poland's investigation into the explosion in rural Poland near the Ukrainian border. And I'm going to make sure we figure out exactly what happened. Our sympathy goes out to apparently 2 people were killed. And then we're going to collectively determine our next step as we investigate and proceed. There was total unanimity among the folks at the table.
Yep, I gotcha.
And we also discussed the latest series of Russian missile attacks, which are continuing the brutality and inhumanity that they've demonstrated throughout this war against Ukrainian cities and civilian infrastructures. And
a spokesman for Prime Minister Viktor Orban said Hungary, also a NATO member which borders Ukraine, convened its National Defense Council in response to the reports. And on to the United States of America, where former President Donald Trump is aiming to become the second commander-in-chief ever elected to 2 non-consecutive terms, as he announced on Tuesday night that he will seek the Republican presidential nomination in 2024.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. So many incredible friends and family here tonight. It's such a beautiful thing. Some people say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy, if you want to know the truth. Really,
His bid to run for office in 2024 was declared at Mar-a-Lago to the delight of aides and allies who have long advised him to mount a forward-looking campaign. Throughout the hour-long speech, Trump made clear that he wants his campaign to be seen by Republicans as a sacrificial undertaking. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, that is NASA, has launched the most powerful rocket ever built on a journey to the moon today, in a spectacular blaze of light and sound that marked the start of the space agency's new flagship program, Artemis. The 32-story long Space Launch System, that is SLS, blasted off from the storied Kennedy Space Center in Florida at 1:47 a.m., producing a record 8.8 million pounds of thrust. Charles Blackwell Thompson, NASA's first female launch director, told cheering teammates that the move will inspire generations to come. Fixed to the rocket's top was the unscrewed Orion spaceship that will orbit Earth's nearest neighbor in a test run for later flights that should see the first woman and first person of color touch down on lunar soil by the mid-2020s. About 2 hours after the launch, NASA said the spacecraft had completed a propulsive maneuver to escape the pull of Earth's gravity and was on its path to the moon. Findings show that the Americans last sent astronauts to the moon during the Apollo era from 1969 to 1972. There were nervous moments as teams worked to overcome technical issues that ate into the 2-hour launch window, which opened at 1:04 a.m. Next is business news on World Now at 4 on Hughes TV. Stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now to business news. Following the announcement by the National Bureau of Statistics, that is the NBS, of 21.09% for the month of October 2022, analysts in the financial sector projected a further pressure on inflation rate to 21.5% in November 2022. They cited the rising cost of energy and flooding, which affected many food-producing states, coupled with the depreciating naira and rising airfare prices. Analysts say they expected a moderate monetary policy rate, that is MPR, hike at the next Monetary Policy Committee meeting by around 25 basic points. According to the NBS Consumer Price Index, that is the CPI, the October 2022 inflation figure, which rose by 0.32 percentage points from 20.77% recorded in September, represents a 17-year high and 11 consecutive month-on-month increase. Still talking business, British inflation has accelerated to the highest level for 41 years, driven by soaring energy, food and transport prices and worsening cost of living crisis. Official data showed on Wednesday that the Consumer Prices Index hit 11.1% in October, reaching the highest level since 1981. The Office for the National Statistics said in a statement that compared with 10.1% in September, which matched the level in July and was the highest in 40 years. Domestic fuel bills rocketed further despite the United Kingdom's government's energy price freeze as the market faced fresh fallout from key producer, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The October figure beat market expectations of 10.7% and was higher than the Bank of England's forecast peak. Over the last year, gas prices have leapt by 130% and electricity prices by 66%. This is according to the ONS. Food prices and transport costs also propelled higher inflation. Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt, speaking on the eve of his government's key budget, blamed Russian President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine for spiking prices as well as fallout from the pandemic. Still to come on World Now at 4 is Sports News with Richard Baden. Stay with us.
Very good evening to you and welcome to Sport News on World Now at 4. I am Richard Badung. On the news, Confederation of African Football, that is CAF, has once again postponed the group stage draws for the CAF Champions League and Confederations Cup. Group stage draws for both interclub competitions was initially slated for today, but the body announced via its website on Tuesday that the event had been postponed. With the development, it means Nigeria Professional Football League side, Rivers United, will wait a little while for the anticipated draw for the Confederation Cup. Rivers United is in the running for the second-tier competition with 15 other clubs. Away from that, talking about the Mundial in Qatar now, Eintracht Frankfurt striker Randal Kolo Muani has been called up to the France World Cup squad in place of the injured Christopher Nkunku. RB Leipzig striker Nkunku suffered a leg injury in training on Tuesday and has been ruled out of the Mundial in Qatar. Kolo Muani has scored 8 goals in 23 appearances for Frankfurt this season. The 23-year-old made his first 2 appearances for France as a substitute against Austria and Denmark in the Nations League in September. Nkunku is the latest high-profile French player to be ruled out of the World Cup through injury, with midfielders Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante and defender Presnel Kimpembe also absent. Didier Deschamps' side is due to fly today to Qatar. The team begins their title defense on 22 November against Australia in Group D, which also includes Denmark and Tunisia. And that's your sport news on World Now at 4. I am Richard Badung. Back to Aynan Lubem for the rest of the news.
And that's your world now at 4. But before we go, here are the headlines once again. On the headlines, we told you President Buhari advises on safe measures in the country. On the foreign scene, we told you Ghana assumes precedence of UN security. Denmark center-left bloc comes out on top. While on sports, we told you Swiatek starts with win against Kazakhstan. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Hughes TV, follow our Instagram page at Hughes TV, visit our YouTube channels at Hughes TV. I am Aidan Lubem. Thank you for watching.